Orlando, Florida. You're now listening to the OZone Podcast, the voice of Orlando Magic fans. Join us every week for a unique fan perspective on all of the latest Magic news and updates. The show starts now.
What's up, Magic fans, and welcome back to another episode of the OZone Podcast, brought to you by DraftKings and now part of the Basketball Podcast Network. We're your hosts, Al, myself, Anthony, and today is Friday, June 25th. We're 3 days post the NBA Draft Lottery. Al, what's up, man?
What is going on?
First and foremost, Al, now that we've had a couple days to kind of settle in, let the dust fully settle, how are we feeling with the results of the NBA Draft Lottery? How do you feel about having that fifth pick and the eighth pick now that you had a couple nights of sleep on it?
Man, it hasn't sunk in yet. Still feels like a nightmare that we just kind of haven't woken up from. Unfortunately, it is real, but it still hasn't sunk in, man. I was so ready to welcome Cade or Jalen Green to Orlando, and I just envisioned that being the plan. That would have been the perfect ending to all the stuff that Jeff Weltman decided to do at the deadline, all the changes. But hey, now we have to deal with a bit of an obstacle here. So personally, I'm still kind of struggling with it. It just, man, I'm just hoping some things go down before the deadline. Oh, I'm sorry, before the trade, the draft. Because man, it's gonna be rough if it doesn't.
Yeah, it seemed like it kind of took all the fun out of it almost for like a brief moment, because you envision, Cade Cunningham in Orlando, Jalen Green in Orlando. And now for a moment, because anything can happen, we're going to talk a little bit about that more in a few. But, that image, that dream kind of dwindled down. It took all the air out of the room. I'm seeing a lot of people online, and you have mixed feelings. Some people are, well, not some, everyone's kind of devastated with it, but I think we've gotten to a point, and I fall victim of this way more often than not, of we're now convincing ourselves that the fifth is fine. You have people coming out with their tweets saying, think about all the players that have been drafted number 5, and that I think it was Nikki Football that was saying that the average all-star, the average elite player is drafted 11th overall. So it's the great news that we have to remember. The positive side is that we do have the 2 picks within the lottery. And I think that part itself, I think that, that makes it a little easier to sleep better at night, because you either have 2 shots, depends on how you look at it. You either have 2 shots at really being able to find that player, or you have enough assets to where you can try to make a move and move up. But as it stands right now, Jonathan Kuminga is the name that we keep hearing that might fall into that 5. How are you feeling about that being a potential target?
I mean, your reaction the day of the lottery was, hey, top 5. As long as we end up top 5, we'll be fine. So technically, that guy would be Kuminga. Who knows? Maybe it is Suggs. Maybe it is Mobley that drops. Who knows? So many things can happen between now and the actual draft. And we're already seeing things like, the longest wingspan recorded and the highest jumping in history of the combine. So things like that can make guys jump in the draft board of some things. So you never know. You never know if the Cavs reach and get a guy like Scotty Barnes, or they trade down to get him if they like him enough. But assuming that we are the ones that get Kuminga, he's a guy that's projected to be a very decent player, potential all-star in the NBA. So it's not like we're drafting, a guy that has no potential, no talent. But when you compare it to what could have been or what we wanted, it's not the same. I think we all can agree there's a drop-off in talent between Green, Cade, Mobley, and the rest of the guys, even Suggs to some degree. So I wouldn't be upset. I think he fits in Orlando. He's a 3. He's a small forward that can play the 4. So him, Okeke, and Isaac wouldn't be a bad trio of guys getting minutes in those positions. But again, we know the weakness of our team right now is the shooting guard and really a shooter. And again, he doesn't quite have those skills at this moment.
I'm trying really hard to be a fan of Kuminga. Like I said, I'm victim of trying to make the best out of the situation. And I'm really, really trying really, really hard to be a fan of Kaminga. I just can't get there. I don't know what it is. It's preventing me. Maybe it's the fact that, it is going to take some time for him to really put it together. That's kind of, scaring me a bit. So Kaminga is 18 years old. All right. 18 years old in the G League, that the season that he just played would have been his senior year in high school. He's not going to turn 19 until October. So he's a very, very young player that, in essence, this past year that he spent in the G League as an 18-year-old, he taking that time to be a little more developed to maybe be a really, really good player. But again, it's the youth that scares me. The inconsistency with his shot scares me. Him not being an elite defender, I guess, kind of scares me, which is surprising because it's not like he's an elite offensive player. So you don't have that like one major thing to rely on. But even just thinking of the fit between Kaminga and Orlando, I just don't see him in a Magic uniform. He's in every single mock draft, or a majority of them, they have Kaminga being fifth and falling to Orlando. But then I've seen others to where he falls out of the top five. Or I've seen others where Scotty Barnes makes it to the top four. And then Suggs completely drops to 5. And then Kaminga dropping to 6. So it's what makes this whole process difficult is that we really have to wait till the end of July to figure out what the hell happens. And there's so many speculations, so many changes. The combine is happening right now. And you mentioned it a little bit earlier that the more that, the teams are able to interview the players, there's already reports that Magic have interviewed a few more. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a few. They're able to see them work out, that some teams are going to start rating these players a lot higher than others. So it's going to be exciting to see kind of how everything lands. But I just don't see Kaminga, being in pinstripes. I could be completely wrong. It's just really hard for me to see it and get there.
No, I'm with you. I don't know why. Like you, I'm also watching highlights. I'm reading up on him, and I don't know why I can't see it. Again, whether it's via trade, whether it is somebody falling out of the top 4 that we expect to be in the top 4, I don't know why. It also hasn't sunk into me that Kuminga's a guy that's going to end up in Orlando. I don't know why, but we could be wrong. Now, let me ask you this. If Suggs drops for some reason and he's there at number 5, and that's who the Magic draft at number 5, would that make you be completely happy and excited about that draft pick? Or again, you're still wishing for one of those other 3 guys that we know are the top 3?
Yeah, I mean, we saw, I can't remember who it is, but I saw a mock draft that Jalen Green dropped to 5. I don't see that happening whatsoever. But I would be more excited for, Jalen Suggs and Jonathan Kaminga. It makes it more difficult because you have Cole Anthony, you have Markelle Fultz. But I would still be a lot more excited about it. It's now you don't have to fully rely on Markelle Fultz panning out or Cole Anthony panning out, because now you have somebody like Suggs. Now it makes those players expendable. I want them to work out. I want them to succeed, and I want them on my team. But at the end of the day, you want to be able to maximize the talent that you have on your team. But man, I don't know. I'm trying really, really hard to convince myself on Kaminga, and I can't get there. Now, there has been reports the last time that, we recorded immediately after the draft lottery, there was a report initially that came out that Cleveland would be open to moving their 3rd pick. But now even more reports are coming out that Detroit, they're willing to listen. Houston, they're willing to listen. So now it doesn't seem as if, the top 3 teams that are selecting they're not fully solidified. And granted, they're going to keep their options open, but it doesn't seem like they're stone cold on, holding on to that. It's not like you have Zion going 1 and there's no way that the Pelicans are trading him. They're at least open to having that conversation. So who knows? It could be an opportunity for these teams to move down. Now, between the 3 teams that I mentioned, who do you feel is the most likely, if a move was made, to move down?
I would have to say it's Cleveland. And we talked about it a little bit before we started recording. So they have wings, right? They have two wings that are super talented in Garland and Sexton. They just drafted Okoro last season, who's a 3. They have Jarrett Allen. So what's really their need if they end up moving from Kevin Love? It's a power forward. Unless they're okay with kind of sitting, Jalen Green or whoever they draft as a guard on the bench for a couple of years, but they have enough talent in those two wings to really not warrant them drafting a guard. Now, there are rumors that they may want to move on from Sexton. Not sure how real those are, but there are rumors out there. If that is the case, then that kind of changes things a little bit. They might be willing.
Ungrateful.
Yeah, man.
Ungrateful.
There's some locker room situations, I guess, going on with him and some things about him being selfish. It is what it is. But I still don't think or don't understand why Detroit or Houston would trade down unless they don't fall in love with the guys they interview and they work out in the draft. In this case, being Jalen, Mobley, and Cade. I mean, I would think Orlando would be willing to give quite a bit of draft capital, expiring contracts, whatever it may be, to make it work for them. But again, just realistically speaking, I don't see that being a realistic option for those teams. Just like we would love to be top 2, top 3, they're in the same shoes. They're trying to get a young player that can be solid. So why would they not want that guy? What are your thoughts on that?
I think that writers in general, they're all over the place. Everyone has their own mock drafts. Everyone has their own opinion. Some people are saying that, Jalen Green wouldn't fit right with Cleveland because they have a good group of guards. Others are saying that he would fit perfectly next to Garland. Everyone is so out of whack. These mock drafts are selected by, analysts, reporters, journalists. But it makes me also wonder, the teams are actually there watching the players work out day to day, having these conversations. They have their own mock drafts. Mm-hmm. They have their own list of order of, the players that they like. And Jeff Wellman, he had mentioned it during his press conference that you start to get a better feel of what teams like what players during the combine, because your perspective can change completely. And an example of that is Scotty Barnes. Mm-hmm. So now that, the teams are in Chicago watching, listening, engaging, it would be interesting to see exactly how everyone feels with those players, and we'll ultimately get the result of that, around draft time for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be, I definitely expect to hear a lot of rumors around some guys that we think are going to be 5, 6, 7, maybe jumping up to the top 4. And you never know, man. I think that I'm a Magic fan and it's a Magic podcast. I'm going to say it. Another thing I was hoping for, it's a guy like Jalen Green, perhaps, maybe getting hurt in one of the workouts. And that's carrying some of the teams.
What's wrong with you?
I know.
Why would you even do that?
Listen, I'm being selfish.
You caught me off guard with that. That is crazy.
But imagine, I'm not even saying like a critical, like drastic injury. I'm saying like, hey, foot injury or a really bad ankle sprain. And now a team is like, hey, do we want to be dealing with that? That's our top guy. We've seen that happen plenty of times in the draft. Year after year, there's always that one guy that gets hurt, or there's rumors about, hey, the medicals didn't come out clean. So who knows, man? There's so many things that could go wrong or could happen between now and July 29th. But we'll see. But again, I'm open to anything at this point. I'm open to researching the top 10 guys that are projected to be drafted and seeing what happens. But one thing that over the last couple of days I've been thinking is I really don't think the Magic will draft 2 guys and bring them in the roster next season.
I don't think so either. We already have so many young players. But you bring up an interesting point. So we have Detroit, Houston, Cleveland, Toronto, and then the Magic. If I'm a player like Jalen Green, obviously I'm biased, Orlando Magic fan, but would it be crazy to think that when it comes to workouts, Jalen Green, a player like Jalen Green, maybe they go work out for Cleveland. Nobody wants to go to Cleveland. Maybe they work out with Cleveland. Maybe they don't have the best workout. Maybe they go, work out for Toronto. Nobody wants to go to a different country and play in the NBA. Maybe they don't have the best workout in Toronto, but Orlando is a great workout. So I always wonder when it comes to those things, how much value, these teams look at players compared to how much weight, those workouts really are. And maybe for players, maybe it's not about that, because you want to be the second pick, you want to be the third pick. Maybe it's not about that. But a part of me just thinks if, Jalen Green may be thinking, man, I would be a way better fit in Orlando. So maybe my workout shouldn't be as great. Maybe I shouldn't showcase this. Maybe I shouldn't do much of that. I wonder if any of that happens, and a part of me really, really hope that it does. You're more on the injury side. Mine, I'm more performance.
Again, I want to clarify the injuries. I'm not hoping any injuries. I'm just thinking, hey, what if they get hurt? Does that change anything? But you never know. I never thought of it from that angle, but I would think that, yeah, these guys have, just like me and you do. If I have a chance to go live in a city for the next 5 years, you think about those things, taxes, weather, entertainment, like all those things cross your mind. And we all know Toronto and Cleveland are super duper cold. Nobody wants to go there. Houston, Detroit, Houston, okay. It's warm weather. No taxes there either. But we'll see, man. It's going to be interesting. And we'll have plenty to talk about over the next 5 weeks as we kind of get ready for this draft. And I expect a lot of rumors between teams trading down and pretty much any analyst that has discussed the lottery over the past few days that I've listened to on their podcast, Zach Lowe and these guys, have all made a point. Why wouldn't Orlando trade up? So I don't know what they know. I don't know. It makes sense.
They don't know anything about Orlando because Orlando doesn't say anything, hint at nothing.
Yeah.
I drive myself crazy every single time I listen and watch, a Jeff Wilman press conference. I don't even know why I do it. Why do I even watch? Why do I even listen? Because you literally get absolutely nothing out of it. Zero.
I think I meant it more from the other team side. Like, do they know anything about those teams willing to trade down? Again, I don't know why they would do it, but they may know something. Who knows?
Yeah. So obviously the Magic Chicago Combine, all the teams are there. We started getting reports today that, the Magic have interviewed Scotty Barnes, Jalen Johnson, Keon Johnson. And granted, this is reports that came from Josh Robbins. And the interesting thing to point out, Jeff Wellman isn't saying that we've interviewed these players. These players are saying that they've interviewed with these teams. Do you read too much into the fact that we've interviewed these specific players, or do you feel like, that's just part of the process and they're just going to interview everybody that they possibly can to try to collect data?
I mean, if I had to guess, I would think the Magic are going to interview anyone projected to be top 15 and probably some more, and then a bunch of second rounders. If not, again, most of them. I think there's a limit or something of just interviewing 20 candidates. That's kind of, I think I read from Josh Robbins this afternoon. But yeah, man, I think they will take advantage of interviewing anyone they want. And don't forget, the Magic traded for Markelle Fultz, Wendell Carter Jr. These are guys that they interviewed back in the 18-17 draft. So you're not only gathering information for now, you're also thinking about a guy like RJ Hampton. That's a guy they liked and loved in the draft last season. And when the opportunity presented itself to acquire him via trade, they jumped on it right away. Why? Because they knew who he was as a person. They knew what he brought to the table as a player. So I don't read too much into it. They're going to interview pretty much everyone on the list. So if tomorrow you see Jalen Green interviewed with the Orlando Magic, that doesn't mean anything. That just means they're getting to know the person. They want to know more about him. But hey, if he does a great job on that interview, they may be more inclined to make the trade up if they like what they hear.
Yeah, I don't read too much into it either. Their job is to, again, collect as much data as possible, go out there and interview everyone. You don't want your front office sitting on their ass not doing anything. You want them in the middle, in the work, and again, trying to collect as much information as possible. So I expect for them to interview everybody that's within their reach. Now, there's been more reports. So we're starting to see more of the dominoes falling. So today, we were able to hear our Rick Carlisle now joining Indiana. So he was hired today. You have Udoka that just signed with the Boston Celtics. And then now there's more talks of Jason Kidd now signing with Dallas. That's starting to become a little more, have a little more weight to it. Now that we're seeing the domino pieces falling for these teams hiring coaches, how do you feel even more so with the coaches that you like for the Magic? Do you feel as if now is the time to be able to make that move and hurry up before these coaches fully come out? Or do you think it's now even more patience knowing that there's now X amount of teams that didn't go after your guy or any of the coaches that you wanted to hire?
I mean, if we know anything about the Magic, is they don't do anything because of all the teams are doing. They won't get rushed because of all the teams are doing. That's always been the case with trades. They always wait until the last minute, the last day to make decisions. And I expect it to be the case also here with the coaching search. The good news for us Magic fans, at least in my opinion, I don't think Udoka, Carlisle, and Kidd were either real options or two guys that many fans wanted to see in Orlando. Carlisle would have been amazing. We all know that. But it wasn't realistic for him to come to Orlando. Jason Kidd was a super mixed reaction. Some people love him as a player and what he represented. He's won championships. But many others looked at the personal side of him and what he's gone through on the personal side and didn't want him anywhere near Orlando. So these are three names that, in my opinion, I don't mind being out of already the market for us. I've said it many, many times. My hires are Kenny Atkinson, Vanderpool, Becky Hammond, or Chauncey Billups, or any other player with experience that has played in the NBA. I keep saying that over and over again. So all those guys are there. They're all still available. So in my opinion, this is all good news for us. What about you? Are there any of these names that you were like, man, I wanted that person?
I mean, Rick Carlisle, obviously that was a pipe dream. We knew that wasn't happening. I put him in the same spectrum of, Clifford, where, he doesn't want to coach a young team and wants to be able to coach a veteran team.
Exactly.
I think that it was great that he decided to switch conferences altogether, go from west to east, better opportunity. But good for him. I think one of the things that really stood out to me was that I thought Clifford would have been a really good fit for Boston. Thought he would have been a really good fit for Indiana. Now that those two are out and Portland have, major interest in Mike D'Antoni, had a second interview with Mike D'Antoni and Becky Hammond, doesn't even seem like Steve Clifford is an option. So first thing that stood out to me was the fact that, there's a really big possibility that he won't find a home. Is he going to coach the Wizards? Probably not. The Pelicans? I mean, he's an extension of Stan Van Gundy. They're not going to do that. That wouldn't make sense. So it's tough to see, because the way that Steve Clifford left and everything they did for Orlando, I thought that everything was in a positive light, and I really thought that he was going to end up finding a job. Other than that, looking at Blazers, Pelicans, Wizards, maybe the Bucks. Now I like where we stand. I like where we're at. I think that between the group, and obviously I'm biased, but I would put the Magic ahead of, maybe I'll put them ahead of all of them. Blazers, you have, again, we mentioned in other podcasts, we have concerns with their roster. You have concerns with the Pelicans roster. And when I mean concerns, I mean, the amount of unhappiness certain players may have and may request to want to be moved. And I think that with all of them, the Magic may just have that much more of security and stability.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, on the Clifford front, I really don't see it unless the Blazers are the only team that I'm like, hey, if they want to go defensive, they want to kind of switch it up from what they've been used to in Terry Stotts, who was an offensive coach. That's the only team that I can see remaining that may be interested in him. Now, when it comes to the Magic, where they rank with the remaining 4 teams that are available, the only team I really can think of that as a coach I would want to go instead of the Magic would be the Pelicans, just because of who they have as far as young talent right now, right? They have 2 young all-stars that, hey, you don't get to coach those guys every single day, and they're getting better and better. So there's some potential there. But there's a history of New Orleans losing their star players. The ownership group not being the very best in the NBA. Look at JJ Redick, what happened with him last season with the Pelicans. He came out and he was completely upset because they told him they would simply buy him out, and instead they traded him to Dallas, which he didn't really want to go there. So there's so many kind of things going on with New Orleans that you never know what a coach thinks about that franchise. So because of that, maybe the Magic are ahead. And like you said, the Blazers are up in the air. We don't know what's going to happen with that team. There's a lot of things that have to happen roster wise. And the Wizards are a mess. Bradley Beal is up in the air. Westbrook's getting older with a huge contract. So from that perspective, the Magic look really, really attractive to a coach that wants to come in and lead a team and kind of guide them for the next few seasons, not necessarily win right away.
I'm getting impatient. I feel like, I'm ready. Draft lottery is done. I'm ready to hire a coach. And we spoke about this off air, and hoping that, maybe the reason why, one, we haven't heard anything, two, nothing's been done, is because we're waiting for, the Clippers to get eliminated so we can interview Kenny Atkinson. But I'm ready for the next step. Like, I'm amped up about the lottery. All right, we not happy with the results, but we really need to nail this one. We need to be able to nail, the right coach to lead this new era of Magic basketball. So hopefully we find out sooner rather than later, because it's go time. We don't have that much time, because you would imagine that you would want, the front office to really get to know this coach and get ready for draft.
Yeah. So, I mean, and especially how important this draft is for the Orlando Magic. You would think they want to be around as much as possible, at least interview some of these guys, be there for the individual workouts so they'll be coming to. So, yeah, I think Phil said it recently on one of his podcasts that he expects the Magic to have somebody hired by July 4th or that weekend. That's next weekend. So we're only about a week and a half away from that. So let's see if that really happens. Hopefully, we talked about it over air. Hopefully, it won't happen when you're in Dominican Republic.
Yeah, man, I go on vacation July 8th, and I swear to you, if we hire the Orlando Magic coach and I miss all that because I'm out of the country, I'd be upset. I'd be lottery upset. That's how upset I would be. Now, we decided to kind of change a little bit, in the sense where, we kind of opted out of the mailbag and decided to bring back Get Off Your Chest. So if you haven't heard Get Off Your Chest, is where, we asked for our listeners to tell us what they're feeling. Get it off your chest. So we're going to read a couple of them. The first one comes from jadebird.official, where he says, we need to draft Moody. He will be the steal of the draft and will be a top 3-5 player in this class.
Not sure. I mean, I'm not sure. Honestly, I don't know enough about him just yet. I'm just doing my homework on guys projected to be 5 to 10 now. But one thing about Moody is he can score the ball. As we found in the measurements here over the past few days in the draft combine, dude's got wingspan for days, long arms, which our front office loves. So from that perspective, he's an interesting prospect. And he's a guy that I wouldn't mind drafting with the 8th pick, not so much the 5th. But I mean, he has potential. Young guy, can score, wingspan, athletic, has all the right skills. But can he be better than Cade, Jalen Green, and Mobley? I'm not quite sure about that.
Yeah, and you wouldn't want to waste you don't want to waste your 5 and 8 on him. He's projected. The Ringer has him projected at 16. So if that's a player that you bring in and you really like, then you can look at opportunities to move farther back into the draft and pick him up. But yeah, you definitely don't want to waste your 5 and 8 lottery picks on a player that might get drafted outside.
Yeah.
Now, if it's a player like Michael Porter Jr., where you kind of know, still drives me crazy. I have no idea how all these teams passed up, including us.
Yeah, and the funny part is, so right now I'm looking at NBADraft.net, and they have us projected at 5 with Kuminga, at 8 with Moody. Now, if that's how things play out, honestly,
you see what I mean? All these different mock drafts are all out of whack.
Yeah,
all out of whack. None of them are lining up. The only ones that are really lining up is 1 through 5.
Yeah. And that's why, again, the NBA draft is such a toss-up. Like, again, we can do all this planning, all this talking, but at the end of the day, the way things go down, it's so different. Look at last season. Like I said, if you look at the projected draft order and the way that things went down in the draft, 1 through 15 or whatever it may be, nowhere near. So again, I really expect some guys to jump up or some other ones to just drop down in the order. just the way it happens every year.
Yeah, and then real quick, I'm looking at the NBA draft guide from The Ringer, and I was having a conversation with my brother, and he had asked, "Man, I'm surprised we haven't heard more of European players this year." And I was like, "Well, I heard of one, and it was Alperen Sengun. I have no idea if I said that. Probably butchered the crap out of it, so ignore that. But just kind of reading what his NBA comparisons are. The Ringer has some shades of Nikola Vucevic and Domantas Sabonis. It's interesting. If you really miss Vuce that much, that might be your guy.
Yeah.
All right. So this next one is from Snow_Bamba2. Interesting name. Where he says, "We do not want Kuminga, damn it." I feel your pain, brother. I feel it.
That was my reaction the moment that card came up with the 5th pick. That was my reaction.
Yeah, that was mine's had a little more profanity in it, but that was a very, very similar reaction for sure.
Yeah.
All right. This next one comes from Keep It Lou. Go all in for a top 3 pick. If we have to, trade both 5 and 8. Is that the right move? If that is it better off getting that one solid player instead of having 2 chances, 5 and 8?
I would be 100% on board with that. Simply because, like we said earlier, the Magic already have enough young guys. Again, how do you play 2 more young guys on top of everyone else that we already have, plus a JI that unfortunately hasn't played much, so he needs a lot of time. Markel, same story. So yeah, if that's what it takes to jump to 3, if Jalen Green is going to be there, make that very clear. If Houston is taking Jalen Green at 2 and Cade goes 1, I'm okay with picking 5. Honestly, like I don't love Mobley or Suggs enough to give up 2 picks for them. But if Jalen Green is there, you do whatever it takes. And even I would even go further. I would even trade the 33rd pick in the 2nd round in that deal and just say, take all these guys. Just give me Jalen Green.
Truthfully, I would do it for any of the top 3. I would even throw Evan Mobley on that list, just because you have an opportunity to go after a franchise changer, potential franchise changer. Then you definitely got to do it. And a lot of you agree. When we put the poll on the Orlando Magic HQ Instagram page, 71% of you said yes, that you would definitely trade both 5 and 8. 29% said no. This next one, I feel like Magic are sleeping on Cole Anthony, potentially starting next year.
I mean, I don't think I would agree with that. If it's at the point guard position, I think we all know he's going to start the season at the point guard because I don't think Markel will be healthy. Hopefully he is. So if he means at the 2 position or the point guard with Markel next to him, then yeah, I don't think he's quite there yet. Don't get me wrong. The kid is working hard. If you look at his Instagram feed, he's been working out every single day.
Every day in the gym.
Putting in the work. So hopefully he earns those minutes and he proves us all wrong. But right now, I think the Magic expect him to be the starting point guard next season, at the very least until Markel comes back. After that, it's a toss-up. We don't know what's going to happen after that.
Cole Anthony's been busy, boy. He's been in the gym every single day. He was on the campaign trail with his stepdad, running for mayor for New York. He was at a Yankee game. This dude's been everywhere on the map.
Yeah, man.
Now, 74% of you said that people are sleeping on Cole Anthony starting next year. 26% said no. It's Markelle Fultz's position. He's your point guard of the Orlando Magic. So if he's in lineup, this man is starting. If he's not in the lineup, then we can definitely see Cole Anthony, taking that point guard role. But the shooting guard position is wide open. I mean, really depending on what the Magic decide to do with their veterans, because you still have Gary Harris on your roster, so that would be your starting 2. But again, we don't know what happened. So
that's the thing. Like, if you look at the roster right now, the way it stands, Gary Harris is starting 2, Terrence Ross is a backup 2. So if that's the situation, then yeah, he goes back to being a backup point guard the moment that Markel comes back.
Absolutely. This one comes from Cameron X and Isaac. He says Kuminga will be the 2nd best player in the draft. The second, like number 2 out of all of them. Number 2. I
Uh,
wish that's a lonely island, my friend. A lonely island.
I mean, in a few years, maybe he proves so strong, and we look back at the draft and say, man, we all were sleeping on this guy. He was the best or the second best player in the draft. But right now, with what we know, no way he has the same impact again as the guys that we want to see in Orlando. Just doesn't seem that way. Now, could that change over the years? Maybe. But right now, that is not an accurate statement.
Yeah, I will be keeping an eye on Kuminga, whether no matter what happens, if we draft him, obviously, if we don't draft him, I'm gonna keep an eye on Kuminga. I'm gonna follow that man. Just because he could be somebody that I'm extremely right about or extremely wrong. I'm hoping that I'm extremely wrong. I really, really am. Because as being one of the youngest guys in the draft, you don't want anyone to play bad or do bad or not have a good career. I just don't know still how I feel about him in the Orlando Magic. But
One thing that's interesting about Kuminga though, kid has been in Orlando prepping for the draft throughout. He's been going to Magic games. So I don't know. That shows me that he either likes the city or he likes where he's at. So I find that very interesting that he's been in Orlando so much. And the moment that we got the fifth pick, I forgot what he posted, but there was like a little emoji that he posted right away.
Really, I missed that.
So I think that there's something there. I don't know if he likes the city. I'm guessing 100% here. I don't know anything, but interesting to keep that in mind as we kind of go forward here and head to the draft.
Very, very interesting. We'll see what happens, man. Again, whether or not we draft him or not, I'll definitely be keeping an eye. Appreciate everyone that submitted your get it off your chest. Hopefully you all felt better about getting off your chest. I think sometimes that we all need a little bit of some venting. So grateful that you guys had that opportunity. Al, let's wrap this up. What are your final thoughts?
Man, it felt like a short episode today after all the talking we've been doing.
It's because we had our Tuesday episode. So
that's right.
Yeah.
Closing it out today, nailed this coaching search. We unfortunately took a little stumble in the lottery that we did not expect, but please nail this coaching situation, because again, this person will be the one driving us for the next 2 to 3 years or longer. And again, the young guys need someone that can push them. And me as a fan, I just want someone again that plays modern NBA. I haven't seen that. We had Frank Vogel, who was defensive minded, old school. We replaced him with Clifford, which again did some great things here, but same thing: slow it down, grind it, play defense. And as a fan that goes to a lot of Magic games, it's boring. I'm sorry, but it is. It's not fun to watch. It's not exciting. So nail it. Get someone who can develop these dudes. And again, you never know. Maybe we didn't get the top picks this year, but maybe the ones that will develop into stars are already in our roster. Cole Anthony, Adrian Hampton, Chuma Okeke, J.I. So that's my closing final thoughts for this episode.
I'm going to end mine with asking you a question. I was listening to NBA radio, and an idea popped up that I thought was an interesting idea. It was getting rid of the entire NBA draft lottery structure and changing it to, because what ended up happening is when they updated their draft process of the percentages, they did that in the event of attempting to stop teams from tanking. Mm-hmm. So the idea that was placed was, instead of there being a draft lottery, depending on where you rank or how you end the record, you get an X amount of dollars, and allow any one of the NBA draft players coming in to be free agents, and allowing them to decide what teams they want to sign for, or what and just be free agents. So the premise behind it is, if you're in the number one slot, you will have the most amount of money. Second will have less, third will have less, so on and so forth. And if the number one player, so for example, we'll put Cade. Let's say that they look at Detroit and they want to get paid. That's all they care about, is that they want to get paid. Then they would sign with Detroit. Detroit would have the most money. Or let's say that you're a team, and instead of having a player like Cade and spending all your money on Cade, then you can split your money and spend it on 2 players, 3 players, just depending on how much you have. Or if you're a player like Jalen Green and you don't want to go to a team like Detroit or Cleveland or Toronto, and you see the Orlando Magic as the best fit for you, then instead of going second or third, like how it is standard, you would be able to pick a team that you feel like you would have the best fit. What do you think about that process? Do you think like it's time to change the lottery? Do you think that maybe that structure would help prevent teams from tanking?
I mean, that's definitely an interesting idea because I get it. Like some teams blatantly tank, right? We know that it happens every year. But sometimes the team is just that bad, man. And they need help. They need some help. Think again, I'm gonna use us as an example, the Orlando Magic. Like we've done things the right way. We've tried to compete, we try to do things properly, not tank. And no matter what we do, haven't gotten any luck. Always miss the superstar guy by one pick. Something's got to change from that perspective. So the idea they presented is interesting, but I think it should only be kept then to teams in the lottery that can make those bids. So you shouldn't be able to make it as, let's say, the Lakers who win a championship or the Golden State Warriors, whoever else, because then what happens is teams with bigger markets are more than likely going to win some of these top talented guys because they know I don't need my contract to make me money. I can go and make money on my shoe deal, on commercials, et cetera, et cetera. So,
but if you're a player like Cade Cunningham, would you want to join a team that LeBron James is on? But you really won't have the same opportunity that you would playing for a team like Detroit?
I mean, in today's NBA, though, where guys want to team up and win rings, and that's kind of the way that they're defined as the GOAT, is how many rings they have. Maybe. I mean, I still to this day don't understand why KD will leave the Warriors. I still think that they would have had.
That's because the West Coast fan in you is still a fan of Golden State.
Well, the Curry fan. I want Curry to end up with more rings than LeBron. But from a logistics, man, like it made no sense. I mean, that team would have won, honestly, even with the Clay injury, they could have won another 3-4 rings. But it is what it is. That's the past. So from that perspective, that idea I think would work. If you do it with lottery teams, you got enough money to bid on these guys. And then pretty much any remaining players that were now picked go into a draft order of some sort. But yeah, because otherwise, man, I feel like teams like Orlando, New Orleans, Indiana, like Cleveland, knowingly, who's going to want to go to those teams? Unless money's the driver. You never know.
Yeah, I like the spin that you put on it. Just allowed the lottery teams to get paid out for it. Smart play. I think that it's just I'm still bitter about us having one of the worst records, top 3 or bottom 3, to have that 14% chance, and we still end up falling out. Man. So where a lot of these young guys, I think they would look at the Magic and say, I think that I would do great there. So interesting perspective.
One thing I'll ask you before we wrap up, did you hear about the rumors about Cade potentially now wanting to play in Detroit? And that's what's driving Detroit to maybe move that pick?
Really? But there was also the report that said that he would work out only for Detroit.
And I mean,
so
it
makes
sense.
Kind of contradicts it a little bit.
It makes sense because basically by him working out for them only, they got to figure out a trade with a team that's interested enough in trading for him. That's kind of the way that I see it. Again, it's a rumor, nothing certain in this rumor. But
yeah, let's hear more of those rumors.
Yes, please.
and talk about and you've had players say that before. The rookies, and man, they have that power.
Mm-hmm.
To where if they really did say that, would a team kind of want to make that risk? Who knows? Because wasn't that the same deal with Luka? I want to say that I remember there being a report that said if he got drafted to a team that he didn't want to play for. I remember there being a team name that he just won't come to the NBA, that he would just stay,
in Europe. Yep,
kind of like a Fran Vasquez kind of deal.
There was something to do with that. I don't remember the details, but yeah, something like that happened. And I think he was open to playing in Dallas, and that's kind of where the whole thing came up. Trading Trae Young for him, and the whole thing went down.
Man, can we fast forward to the NBA draft? Let's just hit the button now. Let's get there already.
It's funny. It's not only that, but then that's on a Thursday. That Monday, free agency is going to start. So it's going to be a wild.
I love
week.
off season. Off season
Yes.
is still the end season. All right, man. That's a wrap for us. Appreciate you guys for listening. Check us out on YouTube. That's a wrap. We'll see you guys next week.
Thank you for listening to the OZone Podcast, the voice of Magic fans. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at the OZone Pod. And remember to subscribe and leave a 5-star review on all your favorite podcast listening platforms.